It's Friday, we got another nice day. It's sort of low 20s, high teens, low 20s, something like that. And quite funny really, because if you look on the BBC weather map for Pori, Finland, it says it's raining. And what, I don't know, 14 degrees or something? So yeah, this is a subject that I'm going to sort of broach today, which is the nature of reality. So this morning my wife showed me an article from the local paper, and it's actually a regional paper, so I would classify it as being mainstream media. And I think that the journalist writing this piece has woken up to the true nature of reality and how things are not actually as how they've been described for most of his adult life. You know, just like the weather isn't raining now, this guy is also making comparisons to other events and actually questioning what he's been told and whether that is actually the truth or not. When I read this article, I actually told my wife about how this article, that there was these elements of it that sounded very much like the famous allegory by Plato, Plato's Cave. And what I'm going to do now is just run you through that allegory very, very quickly. Here it is, my 2-minute version of Plato's Cave. So we've got 3 prisoners. They're sat with their backs towards a brick wall. And they're in a cave. So in front of them, they've got the cave wall. Now behind the brick wall, we've actually got the people who are holding them captives. And they've got a fire going behind the brick wall. And the captives have got various models, like maybe a tree, various types of animal. And they hold that in front of the light that's cast out by the fire. So it creates shadows on the wall, which the prisoners watch all day. And the prisoners think that the shadows are reality. They think that the shadow of a tree is what a tree really is. Likewise, you know, if there's they've got like a little model, or they can do maybe bird things, you know, with they think that that's a real bird. So the prisoners, their perception of reality is completely skewed and distorted by the people who are holding them captive, who are creating these distorted images, these shadows. I suppose in today's world that'd be like the TV, wouldn't it? And Hollywood, and you know, creating versions of reality that people, normies, passively consume. So anyway, one of the prisoners manages to escape. So this guy, he manages to leave the cave, and he's out in the broad daylight, and he sees a real tree. He sees a real bird, and he realizes at this point he becomes what we call, in the truther community, he becomes awake, doesn't he? So the dude who ran away from the cave, yeah, he now realizes that his whole world view before was distorted. He'd been tricked by his former captors, the people that lived behind the brick wall. Or to mix a metaphor, you know, it would be the Wizard of Oz, wasn't it? The little dude who was behind the curtain. So the dude who ran away out of the cave, he goes back to the cave because he thinks, well, I've got to wake up the other 2 who were still watching the shadows on the wall of the cave, who were being deceived. I've got to wake them up. I've got to tell them all about how their perceptions of reality are wrong, how they've been deceived. I've got to wake them up. So guess what happens next? You might think that the other 2 prisoners would actually welcome the news that they've been lied to. But again, in the allegory, Plato says, well, the other two mock him, like saying, no, you're speaking a load of nonsense, mate. You know, this is what a tree looks like, and they point to the shadow. There's this kind of artificial representation, a shadow of a tree, that like some little model that the people holding them captives have made, that want the prisoners to believe is a tree. Most of us lot have experienced this, haven't we, over the last 4 years? We've told people that what they're being told on the BBC ain't true. You know, like the BBC, I think, what is the date today? It's Friday the 14th, I think, of June, right? So you can actually look this up yourself. BBC weather forecast says it's going to be cloudy and cold in Porry. And I'm telling you here now, it's bright blue sky and pretty warm. I've got a t-shirt on, right? And I'm not shivering or anything. I've also seen it before on other YouTubers. You know, I watched this one. I think it was the Wandering Turnip. He was basically in Paris, and what he showed on his video was like how Paris, there's no litter there. It looks pretty nice and tidy, but then of course, you know, not as many boarded up shops and stuff. More flats above shops. So he then makes this video, like basically saying to a lot of normies, oh look, you know, you're told that everywhere else in Europe is just as bad as Britain. You know, you're watching shadows on Plato's cave, the wall of the cave. You know, shadows cast in this sense by the BBC and like the Daily Mail and all the rest of it. So can you guess how many viewers of that channel responded? And I've seen this myself on this web forum. You try to explain to people what reality actually is, and people reject it. They say, no, I'm going to stick with what I can see, or what I think. I'm going to stick with the deceptions. I'm going to keep on telling you that the reality is the shadows. Everywhere else is just the same, when it's not. Anyway, going back to the story as told by Plato, yeah, the allegory of shadows on the cave wall. So the dude who ran away, who came back to tell them what the true nature of reality was, yeah, the other two mocked him, and then when he kept on trying to explain it to them, guess what happened next? Yeah, that's right, they got angry with him. That, you know, that'd be like somebody on here. There's been one person once who said, I use a green screen. You know, no, the weather's not like that in Finland. It's like, you know, it's a green screen. You know, people like saying, no, Britain's nothing unusual with it. Other places are just as bad. And they get really, really angry when you actually try to explain to them that actually that is not the case. You know, somebody says, oh yeah, look, yeah, there's chemtrails everywhere. Everywhere's got chemtrails. No, what you're describing is shadows on Plato's cave. Something else that we've actually seen, I think, as well, is that, like the Matrix movie, is that some people actually prefer the false reality. They actually prefer the shadows on the cave wall, the shadow of a tree on a cave wall, to an actual tree. And if you try to tell them that the shadow of the tree is not really a tree, they get all, as I say, they all get angry and they don't want to accept it. They actually prefer the shadow to the real thing. Beautiful light and birdsong. So this journalist, it's a very, very well written piece, you know, very, very intelligent piece of writing. And he's basically trying to tell people that many of the things that they've seen are actually not real. They're constructs, they're artifacts, you know, big, let's call it big club artifacts. I'm going to go through the article now. So the title of the piece is Have a Summer Filled with Consciousness. So the first paragraph, it says words to the effect of that we're aware of everything from our thoughts, feelings, facial expressions of others, glances, the cleanliness of the neighbour's car. It's a different matter how much we care about our own conscious perceptions. Now, for me, I think maybe he's questioning the kind of accuracy of our perceptions here. As you read this, are you now aware of the reality around you? What sounds do you hear? What smells do you smell? When reading from a newspaper, is the ink evenly spread? Is the screen brightness on your device adequate, or did you have to adjust? So I think he's like asking the reader a question. It's like, are you perceiving, is your perception of reality accurate? Do you struggle to perceive reality accurately? So the second paragraph, again, it's pretty interesting. He's like saying that, talks about biology really, that we're all atoms, and he sort of goes into self-deprecation, that he's not a scientist and stuff. And his consciousness is good here in that he knows what he doesn't know. But what he does understand is that our brain activity, its electrochemistry, synaptic connections, and he goes a bit lyrical in the sense that he thinks that we're made of stardust and the oceans run through our veins. So you often hear people talking about that, don't you? I know Chris Thall talks about, you're the universe. Again, that's this stuff that's kind of, it's ethereal. Again, it's similar to what I was referencing yesterday with the Ye Karjalainen song. He then says like words to the effect that we are a pile of cells, and our cells regenerate every 7 years. So our body becomes completely new every 7 years. And are we aware of that? Are we aware of that, or is it just something that just happens? So far, I know you'll be thinking, what's he going? Why has he selected this article? But the next paragraph gets really, really interesting. So he says, the human beings are kind of like the top of the pyramid. That's what most people think. Some people think. Some people think, like me, that God created man. Other people say, like woo-woo stuff, that extraterrestrial aliens made humans. People like that, they ask, how were the pyramids built? Are the pyramids antennas for outer space? Was the moon ever really visited? Now, that's the thing that really pricked me up. What a question for a mainstream journalist to actually ask. Was the moon ever really visited? If so, why now, more than 50 years later, we can't go there again? Good questions for a mainstream journalist to ask. And again, I think what he's getting at here is that our perceptions of reality, are they just shadows that have been cast on well, maybe not a cave, maybe more like a prison cell, on the wall of a prison cell? Are we just looking at shadows cast by the big club onto the wall of our prison cell? So he sort of like, he then says, have I been watching too much Joe Rogan? Inside my summer hat, it's starting to be lined with thick tin foil. The penultimate paragraph, again, begins with this, oleme, we are. So he's like basically saying that that people suffer from, they consume so much like news from all sorts of different sources. It's actually, just the amount is just colossal. But some people, they try their best to ignore reality. So, they'll drink too much or do drugs. And, you know, to some extent, people are looking to escape from reality, that they, you know, they like their sound bites from the mainstream media. They like looking at the shadows on the cave wall. So I think quite an interesting article. And that's all I want to say today, something to think about, hopefully. So God bless.